Today we're joined by ex-teacher, ex-community developer, and now local historian, Lenard Hurley. And thank you for joining us, Leonard.
It's a pleasure, Sean, indeed.
Leonard, you grew up in Cahersiveen,
Yes,
but your dad was from Cork.
yes, he was a Cork City man.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your family, who they are and where they're from.
Okay, since you mentioned my father first, he was from Cork City. He came to Cahersiveen on a temporary job in 1934, and the temporary job lasted until 1977. So he taught for 43 years, which was quite an extraordinary thing at the time. His father was a tailor, and he was also a Republican, and he was a socialist. He was secretary of the Tailors Union in Cork City, and he tailored with Jack Lynch's father, and would you believe, with Tony McCarthy's grandfather, old Flashay. So my father, before he ever came to Cahersiveen, had an introduction through the tailoring business into Cahersiveen through Flashay.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So as I said, he was teaching here for 43 years, and he taught mathematics to honours leaving cert and honours Latin. He taught Irish. He was very fluent Skellig, and he taught English at different times as well. So it was his life. Teaching was his life, really, Yeah.
And your mum then came from here?
My mum, maiden name was Kathleen Courtney, and she was Cahersiveen girl. She was born in the Old Road. Her father and her mother, both of them, came from Filemore, from Lematira and Ballynahown. So they lived most of their lives in St. Brendan's Terrace, or Marconi Terrace, or better known as the Camps.
Yeah.
So my mother was to go to Wales, to Cardiff, to her Uncle Dan, and she was due to do nursing there, but her mother got a stroke, and my mother stayed to nurse her, and then she met my father, and
the rest is history.
Exactly, yeah.
And how many in your family then?
Well, my father was married twice. His first wife died, and from that union, my brother Sean would be the eldest of the family. And then I was next, and my sister Mary, she became a nurse, and she's married, thank God, and living in Kildare. And the youngest in the family then, Kaki, became a teacher, and she is now, thank God, alive and well, married to a Cork man, Finbar Maw from Bantry, and they're living in Listowel. By the way, it is worth recalling as well that at one time, my father, who taught in the Christian Brothers Secondary School, myself, I taught in the convent school, but my sister taught in the vocational school at Cahersiveen. So between the lot of us, I've been involved with education since 1969, either teaching or on boards of management, right up to today. I'm still on the board of Colossian and Skellig. So between the lot of us, our time in education here would add up to at least 110 years.
Wow, that's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Now, people, when you talk about Leonard Hurley, any ex-students of yours talk very lovingly about you and very kindly. They really, you really come across as a lovely teacher. Can you what's your secret, or how do you think you were able to get that across to students?
Well, the first thing for any teacher is you have to prepare before you go into class. And the next thing you have to teach, or you have to treat the students with respect. And of course the families with respect. And they're two essential things. And you have to be available to teachers outside the school as well as in school. But if you can get across your enthusiasm for your subject and convince them that, like I taught mathematics, and some teachers or some students would have a problem, but you got to convince them they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And with history, which is a great passion of mine as well, it's that bit easier maybe to bring them with you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, I think students want to learn. Yeah.
And to give them, and as well now you've, as you say, you've a long time in the educational business. What big changes have you seen over the years, Leonard?
Oh, there's huge changes. The curriculum is expanded. Most schools, all schools now would have practical subjects. They would have arts, some might have music, they'd have a range of languages. That's a huge change from my time. In my time, you had 5 subjects, and that was it. If you had an ability in the area of practical subjects, you wouldn't have that opportunity in schools. But another great change is the education of girls. That's been absolutely tremendous. You see girls now in all walks of life, including apprenticeships. You have them in the professions, and that would have been unthinkable for ordinary children from ordinary families to be able to get into those areas. But I suppose if we look back at it, there was a time when Ireland and other countries did not use 50% of the ability of the young people of Ireland, and that was the girls. Nowadays, every door is open, and I even hear of girls who are in apprenticeships in plumbing. I've that experience myself, where they're qualified. They're qualified as electricians. They're in art and music, and of course, as I said, they're in most of the professions today. So that's a huge change as well from my time.
Great, yes,
Yeah.
when you started out.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your experience in the development work in Cahersiveen and
Well,
South Kerry.
What we did when I came back to start teach here, 1969, we set up a group of us, the Cahersiveen Development Association, and the one thing we wanted was create jobs. There was a huge need for jobs, and we were very lucky. We had 2 very good councillors here at the time, the late Mary O'Donoghue, John O'Donoghue's mother, and the late Dan Barry, and they worked very, very well together. And between the councillors and our local group, we got the council to buy land for an advanced factory. We were also very lucky in that we had a development officer, Tom Lenihan, who was particularly concerned about the area here. At the highest level in Dublin, within the IDA, we had some very good people, some of them with a Kerry connection, and they helped out as well. So we ended up getting advanced factories into the area. And at one stage, we had something like 460, 70 jobs in the industrial estate. The biggest one, of course, would have been Sports Socks, which was owned by Jim Manning, who was Irish-American. And we had, what's the guy's Dieter Falkenstein, who had a light engineering plant. He was employing something around 30. And of course, you had Irlanda Fashions with Oscar Haug, and he was again applying another 15 and so on there. So, and there were other possible jobs on the line as well. There was a metallurgical company came here, and there was a problem with that company later on, and unfortunately they didn't come. But there was another company here called Trico Deluxe Philippe, and they were employing about 70 people, and they made a fine kind of a knitwear plant, and their plant is where Fixco is today.
All right.
Yeah, so that was developed. Yeah, so
that was great. Great achievements. And again, watching all that, just tell us a little bit about the changes you've seen in Cahersiveen over the years and up to now.
Well, as we know, there is a population decline. That is, unfortunately, you can, not just in Cahersiveen, but in the whole area, population has been dropping. And the amalgamation of the schools in the area, when they were amalgamated over 20 years ago now, we had 787 is the number that I remember. Well, now they're down to about 530-ish. So there's a huge drop in, that's a big item.
And that affects resources and teachers and everything.
Exactly, yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Again, tell us a little bit about the railway and its connection to Cahersiveen.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, I'm very proud to be able to say I have a strong family connection to the railway through my granduncle, who was a train driver. And for years and years, he drove the train. He was based in Tralee for quite a lot of time, and he was on the Tralee to Dublin run. Bill Courtney was his name. Very formidable, officious type of man. And his sister, Mary, was married to Pat Saunders over the water. And Pat Saunders was a linesman, and they had the railway opening and closing of gates as well. So like a lot of people in the area with strong connections to the train.
And the landscape was different, no?
Yeah.
Well,
the whole thing was an extraordinary feat of engineering. And people often forget that. To bring the railway right around from Glenbeigh down right through the mountain, the board through the mountain.
Yes.
Quite an extraordinary achievement. And when I remember travelling in the train, going to football matches, for instance, was a big item. And if you look out the window, there was a sheer drop at places. So anyone that would be nervous would be well advised not to go out the window.
And it's an amazing, I think, in the folk memory, to have that line opened up for the Greenway now. What are your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. The tremendous use of that. The whole place will benefit from it. No question about that. It's yesterday I had to go to Killarney, and as I came along by what was the old Kill station, I saw a couple of people cycling, and I did look up. Yes. I got a great kick out of it. I walked it myself, that section from Golden's over to the station. It's a brilliant thing. And to see the line being used, because those of us that remember the train, the last train and all that, highly emotional. And of course, we often forget that there were direct jobs. There was over 20 direct jobs lost on that train when it closed. You also had the train used for exporting fish, and special trains loaded with fish. On fair days, cattle and sheep would have been sent out, special trains as well. So that was another thing worth recording. And of course, also people emigrating. It was often a place of tears.
Yes.
And people coming back, of course, a place of joy as well. But it was very much a part of the whole fabric of society.
Tapestry. Yeah. Now, as a historian, you have loads of wonderful stories and research done about Cahersiveen, about South Kerry. Tell me the story about the man and the wine, the wine merchant.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah, true, absolutely true. The uh, John Augustus O'Shea from Clanlinahan emigrated in the 1880s to America, or to Sydney, and there he met a French lady, and her father was a retired naval officer in the French Navy, and they became an item, and they had a son, and the son was he went to school in Sydney, and then because of our French connections, he was sent for a finishing school to France, and he finished his second level, went into third level, and during his time there, he became a Francophile.
Mhm.
Everything about France, but particularly the wine. And he became quite an expert because when he was in college, he studied all aspects of wine. This guy was so good that he was asked to go to university in America as a lecturer. But in the meantime, war broke out, and the mother asked him to come back. He didn't want to come back, but she put a bit of pressure on, and she bought land in the Hunter Valley. At that time in the Hunter Valley, you would, from Sydney, it could take over 2 days to travel. So it was quite a remote place. But it was ideal for the growing of vines because of the soil and the slope of the landscape. So back he came and decided that he would go to the Hunter Valley and start and so on. But before he went to the Hunter Valley, by the way, he had a sister, and he was not happy to be back in Sydney.
Mhm.
And his sister decided, take him out himself and so on. And she said she'd bring him to this party. And as they went to the party up near the house, there was somebody playing a piano. And he stopped, listened, and before he entered the house, he told his sister, she told him who was playing, I'll marry that girl, which he did.
My goodness.
Yeah, absolutely true. On top of that, they got married, they went up to the Hunter Valley, and they were there for quite a long time in very tough, rough conditions. She was a very cultured lady, and he was obsessed with wine and grapes and all to that.
Right.
And after a while, I think after 12 years, she said, I've enough of this, I'm out of it. So they split up. He went back to, she went back to Sydney. Oh, they had a young daughter in the meantime. And he bought a house for them back in Sydney. And after a few years, he got sick. He had cancer.
Mhm.
And herself and the daughter went back up to Hunter Valley to nurse him until he died.
God.
Yeah, yeah.
And they have an award for him now, or?
Yes, once every 2 years, there's a huge silver cup given to the person who has been most innovative in the Hunter Valley in the wine business, because he was so good at all this thing. He helped neighbours. He was an expert on it. He knew how to blend the wines. He had very poor eyesight, but he had a sense and he had a nose for the wine. Now, the reason I know a lot of this, well, I've read a lot as well online and so on, but a granduncle of his, Lachlan Murphy's granduncle was the man I'm talking about. And it was Lachlan's brother, the late Tom. When Tom went to Australia with his wife Mary, Tom dug up a lot on this. And the books had been written on what I describe him as the father of the Australian wine industry. He's known as Maurice O'Shea. But Tom Murphy, Lord of mercy and Tom always insisted Morris O'Shea.
Oh, yes, of course, that'd be.
Yeah, Lord of mercy and
Morris
Tom.
O'Shea. Yeah. And so it's called the Morris O'Shea Award for Australian Wines.
That's right, yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah, that is, yeah. Oh, by the way, the name of the vineyard that he established, Mount Pleasant Vineyard, is still there. I was there, I visited it, and I saw the cup and it was shown around and so on, And outside, just at the entrance, there's a bust on the plinth of Maurice O'Shea.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Anything else on the history now that you've picked up along the way? Any kind of research that you'd like to share with us?
Well, the other person that stands out is Margaret Mary Healy Murphy. She established a religious order for women and nuns in Texas. Interesting. She emigrated with her father. The mother had died. She emigrated with her father when she was 12. She got married when she was 16. She was widowed when she was 51. And she found a religious order when she was 60.
My goodness.
And when she died, she was buried with her husband.
Oh.
Now, this is an extraordinary woman in my book. She established schools and religious orders, as I said, and helped to build churches. The husband was quite wealthy. He was from Mallow, John Bernard Murphy, and they used their money to promote the poor and disadvantaged, mainly African Americans. And when she went to get a loan on one occasion, the bank manager would, no way would he give money for anything for those people. But that didn't stop her. She used the husband's money to help the poor and disadvantaged. So she was quite an extraordinary woman. On top of that, she's been put forward for canonization.
My goodness.
By the religious order in Texas. The other part of the story is that she had a sister, Jenny. And when Jenny was born, the mother died very, very shortly afterwards. And that's when the family left to go to America. But Jenny was left behind with relations. Her aunt, who was married to the great famine doctor, Dr. James Barry. And when Jenny became a certain age, she was sent to Belgium to school because Dr. James Barry's daughter was already in the boarding school in Namur to a religious order, and they were called the Sisters of Namur. So Jenny went there to be educated, and like her first cousin, Dr. James Barry's daughter, both of them joined the Sisters of Namur. And where did Jenny end up? In a convent. She was in charge of a convent in Waco, in Texas.
My goodness.
So these two Cahersiveen women, both Margaret Mary Healy Murphy and Jenny, quite an extraordinary people. All this can be found on official websites of Texas, official sites, and also on education platforms of Texas as well.
My goodness, you just, I suppose growing up, you always think of Kerry and South Kerry and Cahersiveen and Iveragh
Yeah.
as Irgulta, as isolated.
Yeah.
But the more you hear of people traveling and coming and
Yeah.
going, there was such a roadway out to the world and back again.
Yeah,
You
without
know,
a doubt. Even in my time, when we were quite young, it was not unusual to hear coming songs being sung coming out of pubs and so on, both Spanish and French. Irish was quite common at the time in lots of places, and English. So because of the Spanish boats and the French boats coming into the
of
harbour here,
course, yes.
so that was not uncommon. And of course, smuggling would have been the great, as we know, and it's well worth recording as well that the O'Connells were not the only ones engaged in
Yes,
smuggling.
yes.
It was pretty widespread at different times because, as an old man in Cardaniel told me one time about somebody mentioning someone who referred to their neighbour and said, "It's okay, I'm only going to France," because summertime in good weather, if with a good wind, you'll be there in a couple of days.
My goodness.
Yeah, so yeah, there was a good connection going out, and of course you had the cable stations here as well.
Of course.
Both in Waterville and Valencia, you had the weather station, and of course you had the football, and that was a huge one, especially when the trains came. Yeah, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about growing up in Cahersiveen and the entertainment at the time. Somebody else was telling us about it, 52 pubs.
That's right.
And just growing up, what town was like.
It was busy, a bigger population, obviously. The 52 pubs, of course, when you think of it, they weren't all relying on the sale of liquor, because very often they would have other things going. Pubs would sell on one counter the drink, and on the other counter it could be groceries, it could be footwear. And I always remember one pub in particular where you could be having a pint, and next to your elbow on the other side there could be a big side of bacon.
Yeah.
So that was not uncommon. People had to make a living, and the other thing, of course, a lot of these skills are gone now. You had quite a few tailors, you had shoemakers, harness makers, blacksmiths, and these were all good jobs as well at the time. If you had a skill, you had an income.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And there'd be lots of, you see, then like you were saying earlier, you'd have the professions, but you'd also have the apprentices working with them.
That's right.
So that was more people in the town again and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, the dance halls were huge as well.
Yes, the Griffins owned the dance hall, and the big band at the time throughout Munster and Ireland was Mick Delahunty from Clonmel. And that was a big occasion where the dance would start 11 o'clock or thereabouts, and you'd all night dancing until 4 or 5 in the morning.
My goodness.
Yeah, yeah. That was not uncommon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people would just go home, or how would they?
Well, also, people would come. Cahersiveen was a wealthy town at that stage. People would come from all over. They'd come down from Clonmel and further afield to Cahersiveen because of the fishing. It was a wealthy town.
Yes.
And you had all sorts of stories being told in Valencia and Portmagee about fellas having so much money they could light their pipes with pound notes.
Yes, yes.
Exaggeration,
of course.
Yeah, yeah.
Just £5 notes.
Yeah, £5 notes even, yeah.
And even, I'm just thinking, Mac, because I was born decimal day. I was born the day the decimal changed.
Yeah.
Changed the decimal. But the old money as well, they were big notes, weren't they?
That's right, yeah, they were, yeah. And in the coins, remember, you had the image of animals, greyhounds and so on.
A hen and chicken.
A hen and chicken, yeah.
And,
yeah. It was quite artistic,
yes,
that
and
as
the
well.
greyhound.
Yeah. And of course you had the creamery.
Yes.
That was a big employer as well at the time.
Hmm.
That would have been throughout the year. There would have been over 20 employed in the creamery, and you had at seasonal work. That would be 40 plus, and that was a big course. Lots of farmers went to the creamery at the time.
Hmm.
Now it's only a handful. In the observatory, you would have had over 40 employed in the observatory. You know what, about 6 or 7. So,
And the generating station.
oh yeah, that was huge.
Hmm.
That was like the creamery. There were, I mean, people had to cut turf, sell to the station. So while there was what, about 15 to 20 applied in the dealer station, but the checks that were issued to farmers in particular who were selling turf to the station, that kept a lot of people going.
And
then
and
you had the creamery check as well.
hmm.
They were vital.
God, yeah,
vital,
to get things off the ground, and
yeah.
there'd be big changes then as well from just going hand to mouth to getting checks and being able to.
Oh yeah,
It made a big difference.
And another thing as well, just around when I was getting maybe late teens and so on, something happened that time. The wool industry started to slip.
Yes.
But you had wool buyers here, and the price of wool was very good. And there was one that I know in particular, and that was Coakley's, is where the Fert is now.
Hmm.
And that because Coakley was married to a cousin of my mother's, and they had a drapery shop in the front, and they had a bar at the back, and Coakley was from West Cork, Dunmanway, I think. He used to buy the wool, and they had what was known as a contract account. So the lady of the house, the farmer's wife, would buy stuff from the draper shop against
Yes.
what she was what they were making on the wool, which was a very good way of doing business.
Economics, yes.
Exactly, yeah.
Just a quick question, Leonard. The well that's in the Ferta now, that wasn't in Coakley's. That would have been probably in the outside yard or something.
A good question. Most of the houses on up along that side of the Church Street, up along, most of them would have wells. Yeah. And Teresa Shea's pub, which is where Frank's Corner is now, or a part of it, there was a well there, I remember distinctly.
Yes.
But I think most of them had wells. Of course, you had a well in the Fairfield as well, and you had
and near Bonnie's, that's a holy well.
That's a holy well. It'd be different again.
Yes. That was for water.
You had a forge in the Fairfield, and it was run by relations of my mother's. They were Cliffords from the old road. Yeah.
Wow.
And that came to an end of my time as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the horses would go there to get shod, and it'd be a perfect place before they were sold. Or
yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
God, yeah. The Fairfield was a very different.
Oh, it was,
place. Yeah.
Very much so.
And again, when it was busy, it was.
Oh yeah. Well, the fairs were generally not. They weren't just held in the Fairfield. They were held on the street as well. You know.
Leonard, and I've asked this question all over the place, and we'll finish with this, but I'll give you a chance if you have anything else to say. But the fair days in Cahersiveen, there's no pattern to them. It's not like the second Thursday of every month, or it's specific dates. I wonder, how did that come about? Have you any idea?
I don't know, to be honest about it.
I presume they were just... But like Bantry is the first Friday of every month. It's the Bantry Fair Day. But here, they're all different. I wonder, do they go with the moon? Or
I think it went, for instance, before the winter.
Yes.
Animals would have been shipped out.
Yes.
Because they wouldn't be able to carry them in bedland and so
Yes,
on,
of course.
and those animals will be brought for fattening.
And I think there's 2 in September, if I'm not
That's
mistaken.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, it might have gone with the train.
Oh yes, without a
It
doubt.
might have gone with the timing of the trains.
The one thing about the fairs that I remember was my mother's relations coming in. My grandmother, my grand aunt Bridie, and her husband Mike Connor from Garrydine, and another, my mother's aunt, Kathy Denny from Spooncorn of Waterville, and you would sit down and listen to the conversations, and some of the time anyway, and you'd learn. And I often regret that we didn't sit down long enough and learn more, because you could get a feeling of times past.
Yes.
But it was an education. There was another, my mother's Donald Bill Courtney from Ballynahown. He was a big man with a big booming voice, and he used to bring in, he'd a very good gardener. Donald Bill, anyway, on fair days in particular, would come in, and by the way, he was married to Minnie, who was the daughter of Michael the Weaver, who was the last weaver in South Kerry. Anyway, Donald Bill he was a great gardener. He did all sorts of things that were unusual at the time, strawberries and gooseberries, and he had apple trees and that sort of thing. And anyway, he brought in these big Spanish onions, a lot of them into the kitchen. And I remember being there anyway. And my father was there as well. And he said, "No, Kathleen," he says, "they're Spanish onions and so on. And I give you one bit of advice," he says. "After eating those, my advice is do not go into polite company."
Oh my God.
My father thought was very funny. It was hilarious, but my mother wasn't a bit amused.
She wasn't impressed. Tell us a little bit about the weaver. That's very interesting now.
Well, I barely remember him. I remember him on a bike. And it turns out that he's actually related to the weavers, the O'Sheas. Now, I need to talk to some of the O'Sheas about more about that, but certainly that's why they were called the weavers when they were singing.
Band, yes.
So, but they'd actually be worth talking to, know.
Big time.
Yeah.
And he wove blankets or cloth, or
I don't know enough
yes,
now,
yeah,
to be honest.
He's just a weaver.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that there was a weaver here,
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Because if it's not here now, or not here in your present, you feel it's never been here.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Leonard, have you anything else to add? Have you anything else? We've talked to good.
Not really. Just say that Cahersiveen is to me was home. It's a great place to live, great place to rear a family, and with the Greenway coming in, I can see things getting better and better and better again.
Thank you so much, Leonard, and thank you for a great conversation.
You're very welcome, Sean. Very welcome.